Hello, and welcome to Inner Peace Counseling Services. I'm Dr. Angela Hargrove, and thank you for joining us today. For those of you all who have not met us, I am, again, Dr. Angela Hargrove here at Inner Peace Counseling Services, and these are my colleagues.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tasha Ganthier. I'm a licensed psychotherapist here. I'm Angela's business partner at Inner Peace Counseling Services.
And I'm Sherry Green, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm a counselor here at Inner Peace.
And so we welcome you joining us today. If you're new, welcome, and thanks for joining us. We're going to continue looking at the Inner Peace Manifesto and looking at the various statements that we say that represent what we do here at Inner Peace Counseling Services. And so if you haven't seen the manifesto, please go to our website, innerpeacecounselingservices.com, and you can pull it up there, and you can also download the ebook that explains all the different areas. So one of the main ones we want to talk about today is pain happens and that you can live through it. And that is what we do here. We deal with emotional pain. And so learning how to live through this pain that you're experiencing is important, whether it's anxiety or depression or some other kind of emotions that you're experiencing, grief and loss and just general emotional distress. We want you to learn strategies for managing that. And it's important because when you don't, it leads to poor behaviors, acting out. It can lead to addiction. It can lead to disruptions in your relationships with the people you care about. It can get away with messing up work and you actually getting to work or doing work. Because when we're in emotional distress, we lose our ability to function appropriately. So we may sleep too much. We may not sleep enough. We may generally be cranky or snapping at people. It just can impact us in so many ways. And so if you don't learn how to manage your emotions and recognize that you have the strength to get through it from one point to the next, then you often become self-destructive. And many times you fail to realize you've already experienced pain in your life and lived through it. You just don't like the feeling it gives you.
Exactly.
And so we're going to explain kind of what emotional distress looks like, and then Tasha's going to do that, and then Sherry's going to give some strategies for managing emotional distress.
One of the things we have to remember, we're thinking about who we are as people, is that we're physical, emotional, and spiritual people. In spirituality, we're talking about energy. We pick up energy in different areas of our lives, from love and affection, from children to playfulness and playing, exercise. That's the energy we're talking about. But when we're talking about emotions, we're talking about the things that affect us because of their outside experiences. They're not necessarily going to be physical forming, but they can cause physical problems. So emotional pain is going to be more driven into something that is very unpleasant, feeling overwhelmed, feeling very chaotic and irritated. They're basically going to be things that you feel, not necessarily things that you create pain in your body or create distress physically, but emotionally it'll make you very emotional, such as crying and being tearful, such as increased anxiety, irritability, frustration, can cause depression and anxiety. Sadness can cause you to regress and withdraw from the world because you're overwhelmed with the thoughts of that emotion. And emotional pain creates different things, and they can show up in different ways. Sometimes people have emotional pain, don't realize it because they're living through it. It's like we call certain folks who have substance abuse high function substance users or high function alcohol users. But there are people who are high functioning, emotionally challenged individuals. And emotionally challenged meaning I get up every day, get to work. When I get home at the end of the day, I am exhausted. Right. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to talk to anybody. I am in distress. I am frustrated with my life. I'm frustrated with work. And this is creating for me a feeling of loss, hopelessness, sadness. And this is what we describe as emotional pain. And it's important, like Angela said, to address this issue when it becomes overwhelming, because a lot of us are able to move through it. We can exercise through it. We can talk to someone, use our supports, and get into a better space. But some of us cannot. And when you recognize that you're having emotional pain, it's really important to address it, because scientifically what we know now as practitioners is that what the mind can't handle, the body will take on. Right. And then you don't want your emotional distress or pain to start to affect your physical body, and then start having maladaptive traits.
Right.
Responses such as alcohol use and inappropriate behaviors and acting out and anger issues and these different things, not showing up to work because I just can't function at work.
Right.
Yelling at the kids, the dog, the cat, everyone, and not being able to do anything about it because you don't realize that you're in such an emotional place. But when you do, there are strategies, and Sherry knows is going to talk a little bit what those strategies look like.
And so first I want to pick up on one of the things that Tasha said, that there's sometimes very high functioning people who are in emotional distress that are high functioning. Sometimes these people I call they're chronically emotionally distressed, but they've learned how to put on a nice mask. Some people don't have a nice mask and it's just, when you look at them, but there are many, many people who are chronically in some type of emotional pain or distress and they wear the mask. And one of the things I say when I meet someone like that in session is that mask must be really heavy. Here's a place you can put it down, because I think that mask can contribute to your emotional distress. And so the people who are suffering more chronically have some strategies already in place. Some of them are healthy coping strategies, and some of them are the ones like Angela and also Tasha talked about. They're more maladaptive strategies. They get in the way of social success. They get in the way of academic success. They get in the way of career success, financial success. So these maladaptive strategies are getting in your way. They are barriers to you being successful, or barriers to you being healthy in all of those areas.
Let me add real quick. I mean, one of the things that we miss a little bit is that when you mentioned earlier that it can manifest in the body, for those people who have other illnesses or pain in different places, back pain, shoulder pain, stomach pain, you may exacerbate those things because that emotional distress has got to come out.
Yes,
it's going to come out physically. So people who have chronic problems with their stomach or chronic
arthritis,
and so you can have health problems that are just exacerbated by your emotional distress. And so that's another reason why it's important to learn how to deal with it, so you can separate it and not make your pain, your physical pain, any worse than it already is.
Absolutely. And I think to that also, if you are struggling with physiological pain and physiological distress or illness, it can exacerbate your anxiety and depression. Because the mind and the body are one. They're part. The mind resides in the body, right? It's in so anytime a doctor tells me it's in my head, I'm like, did you fail anatomy? Because my head is attached to my neck. So if I'm telling you that's what hurts, then I just want you to be aware that either of those, both ends, Angela, you're right. So if you remain chronically in emotional distress or pain, it will exacerbate those physiological things that are kind of vulnerable to different types of suffering. And likewise, if you're a person who's struggling, I've seen lots of clients who are struggling with chronic pain, physiological pain management, either through exercise, physical therapy. They're trying to manage it with medication. And sometimes a doctor will finally say, I think you also need to see a therapist to be a part of this team in managing your pain, because it has now exacerbated, this fight with this pain has exacerbated any anxiety predisposition you have or any depression symptoms. It's triggering you. So we talked a little bit about these types of pain. I want you to know that the first part of pain management, whether it's physiological or emotional, is to pay attention to the pain, to bear witness to it, so to speak. To recognize, yep, I'm in pain. Yep, this feels bigger than yesterday. This is not the same kind of anxiety I usually wake up with. Because now, if you're a person who struggles with chronic pain, you now know this is acute. This is more intense than I usually have to deal with. And so this is different than that I got to get up. This is, I can't get up. I have no energy. I have no motivation. And you'll treat these two types of pain ever so slightly different. Like that chronic pain, that you can do some more preventative medicine. But the acute pain, you have to do reactive medicine. You have to do something now. And so that's what I want you to hear today too about pain. So the first thing I think you have to do is bear witness to your pain or pay attention to it. And that means that you have to be a little self-reflective and know yourself a little bit, spend time with yourself. Know that this is not me just being sad. I've been sad and crying and not eating and not being able to get out of bed and not doing my routine for some days now.
Right.
So now I need to do something different. I tell people all the time, the main thing you can do about pain if it's something hurt is do something different.
Yes.
So if
distract yourself.
correct, do something different.
But let me add to that. One of the things I think it's okay to distract after you acknowledge what
Correct.
the real pain is about.
Correct.
A lot of times we want to distract before we've acknowledged that pain.
Correct.
Thank you.
And then it's sitting there
Correct.
causing more pain.
Yes,
Correct.
and not
distress.
being addressed or resolved.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's important to say, I'm hurting because my relationship ended.
Right.
I'm hurting because, my best friend moved away.
Correct.
I'm hurting because I lost this job that I really wanted
Correct.
or didn't get the job I really
Yeah.
wanted. Or my friend said something that hurt my feelings, or my child is in distress and doing some things. Like, it is important that we acknowledge the real reason. And even if you're ashamed of that feeling or you have some guilt feelings, whatever the feeling is, you have to start with acknowledging what it is and accepting that you have that feeling. It's not a right or wrong.
And
feeling.
it's pure of thought, because the reality is we're only taught in our culture to address pain when it's severe, when
Correct.
it's now overwhelming.
Mhm.
One of the biggest things in strategy, like Sherry was saying earlier, is if you catch it early, it makes life so much easier to
Yeah.
deal with when you
Mhm.
recognize that something is coming up.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we tell our clients, identify the trigger early.
Yeah.
If you feel anxious, as soon as you feel anxious, there's a change. Don't wait till that anxiety now has you in panic.
Right.
Get to the anxiety early by saying, oh, what this person just said to me
It's
has
why I'm
triggered me and is bothering me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's creating emotional disturbance
Mhm.
in me.
And that's part of the bear witness I'm talking
Yes.
about, to pay attention to your pain, to figure out, okay, what happened before. Very often if someone tells me they had a panic attack and they'll say nothing triggered it, I'm like,
Mm-mm.
something triggered it.
Yeah.
You might not be aware of what sensation it was or what thought that kind of just was a fleeting thought. Because a lot of panic attacks and anxiety attacks are triggered by a memory of something, that really happened, but you are equating this feeling is happening because something has triggered
Right.
that memory, and you're beginning to feel
Interconnections.
like
Mhm.
I'm there again. You're not really. And so I tell them to think about, was this thought, when we figure out what the thought is, was this thought or this belief based on something that is happening or something that did happen
Right.
or something that you think
It's
is going to happen?
happen.
And so this kind of helps people to bring back to present focus. That's another good way to focus and to bear witness to your pain, but it's also part of pain management.
Right.
So we're telling you all these different things in terms of attending to your pain. I don't want you to think I want you to stay there. I want you to begin to breathe through it. And when you're breathing through it, there's all kind of breathing exercises. The American Heart Association loves the 12 count breath, and
Yes.
sleep specialists love the 12 count breaths. I don't necessarily tell people to hold at the top to 7, but rather to at least be able to inhale for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 8. That's a 12 count breath. So your exhale pretty much is twice as long as your inhale.
Mhm.
This will calm down your mind. It will calm down your blood pressure. It will slow your heart rate so that you can shut off that emergency alarm that's triggering pain, physiological and emotional. You can calm it down enough so that you can think, okay, what's causing this? What do I have to remember first to do
Yes.
to get it smaller? Because if it's this big, I can't manage it.
Right.
But if it's this big, I can handle that. This I can handle. So breathing is a good part of pain management. So that's giving you 2 things. One is to pay attention to it. The second one is to breathe through it. And then the third one is to do something different. If you have your hand and you have touched a hot stove and it's burned, right?
You're not
You're
going
going
to
to keep the finger on the stove, or you move the finger
Right.
and attend to it. So I want you to, if you're beginning to see, okay, so I'm sitting still and this doesn't feel good, get up. If you're beginning to feel like the more and more I lay here alone, the sadder I get, and the more reflecting I am on negative elements of my life,
Right.
which is causing me more pain, get up and call someone. Maybe you shouldn't be alone right now.
Right.
If you're beginning to be agitated because you surround yourself with stimulation and people, and that's really working you up and causing you emotional distress, move to be still and alone some.
Right.
Move somewhere else. So there are things that we can do to reduce the pain. But the very first thing you have to do is to bear witness to it, pay attention and say, okay. And I like what Tasha says, where's this pain coming from? And Angela said too. So you
Right.
figure out, okay, so now I know the trigger. Some triggers you can avoid. Yes.
Some you can't.
Some you can't. Those you can't. And this is a big one for pain, because this is the message you should begin to tell yourself when you're getting quiet and you're doing your breathing exercise, to remind yourself, because remember that area of the brain that lets you know you're in pain is not going to let you know it's time limited. That requires the logic part. That's why we're calming ourselves down. We're doing our breathing. We're getting centered and trying to remember, what am I supposed to remember? Oh, this is the big thing you're supposed to remember. This sensation has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yes.
Right.
So even if you're in the middle of it, you won't think that I'm always going to be here. That's self-defeating, and it will make you stay stuck. But if you recognize this sensation has a beginning, a middle, and an end, you can begin to feel more hopeful, and you can begin to call up some of those more resilient strategies, those strategies that will move you forward. The last thing I want to say about pain management is to remember, try to recall when you weren't in pain, and remember what that looked like, what that felt like, so that your body can attend to it when it happens again. Because remember, what I just said, all sensation has a beginning, a middle, and an end. All pain and all joy.
Right.
We need to remember what it felt like, pay attention what it felt like when you felt joy, when you felt pain-free, when you felt safe, when you felt calm. And so that you can implant that memory into yourself and bring that back to your body and your
And
mind.
and in doing that, you create what we call stronger emotional muscle memory. There's a physical muscle memory, but there's also a very emotional muscle memory. And like Sherry said earlier, those muscle memories will be triggered by a specific equation in a negative way. Because if I have a muscle memory of being in a car accident and I've never resolved the emotional challenge that came with that accident, the trauma of it, every time I get in a car, that muscle memory is going to be triggered, creating some form of emotional distress. So remember, as we evolve and we grow and move forward in our journey, to think about it in a specific and practical way. If I'm going to be in a good place emotionally and have a very peaceful transition from one challenge to another, I must first, like Sherry said, recognize what's causing and what the challenges in the moment is creating a change in my emotional state. But also remember that the things we once did when we were younger, the things we once did a year before or 2 or 3 years before, no longer applies here if we're evolving. As we evolve, some of these strategies that we once did may not apply anymore.
Right.
They may not work anymore. And if going to the gym is not enough anymore, you have to add on something. And if you keep adding things that's still not working, that's when you need to see someone in a professional way. Because now we have to go a little bit deeper interpersonally and deal with what's really, really driving forth some of these challenges that you're facing emotionally. Because the things that we once did before, those strategies that worked before, no longer works today.
Absolutely.
And as you're managing your pain, then we suggest you start the self-care activities that we've talked about, whether it's taking a walk, whether it's spending time with friends, having a long shower, a bubble bath. It could be going and engaging in your favorite activity. Once you kind of acknowledge and accept it that this does hurt, but it won't last, now you start the soothing exercises, the things that allow you to take care of yourself. So if you struggle with emotional pain and you struggle with figuring out how to take control of it and learn how to live through it, that's what we can help you do here at Inner Peace Counseling Services. I ask you to give us a call or go on our website and look information and check it out, and come back and decide that you'll spend a little bit more time with us, whether in person or Facebook, and we can help you figure all these things out. So we'll see you again in a couple of weeks, and we thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.